Good afternoon and welcome live to the Phoenix International Raceway just southwest of Phoenix, Arizona for today's Phoenix 200 automobile race. We bring it to you right now as the cars get ready to make their last pace lap before the start of the race. 22 cars in the race on the world's fastest 1-mile oval track. The two Andrettis, Mario and son Michael in row 1, Mears and Rahal in row 2, row 3, Kevin Cogan and Dick Simon, a bit of a surprise. Row 4, Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Jr. 5, Dennis Firestone and Johnny Rutherford. Row 6, Jose Garza and Jeff Brabham. Row 7, Harry Luyendyk and rookie Jeff McPherson. Row 8, Fabrizio Barbazza, a rookie, and Gary Bettenhausen. Row 9, Tom Sneva and Randy Lewis. And row 10, Tony Bettenhausen and Ludwig Heimrath Jr. Row 11, Emerson Fittipaldi, who elected to move back so that he could switch cars after qualifying farther ahead of that. And Roberto Guerrero, who was moved from the second row all the way to the back of the pack when his car in tech inspection tested 2.5 pounds under the minimum weight yesterday afternoon. Much of the attention centers on the Andrettis in row 1 as they get ready to go green. I'm Jim Lampley. With me in the booth, ABC Sports automobile racing expert Sam Posey. Bobby Unser, who won 4 races on this track in his illustrious career, is here. So is Jack ARUTE. And it is Mario Andretti who dives to the inside of the track and takes the lead out of turn 2 on what I said, and will repeat again, is the fastest 1-mile oval track in the world. Sam Posey, a very tight track, will have speeds in excess of 170 miles per hour at times during the race, so this is a highly explosive situation as Andretti leads his son after lap 1.
The two ends of the track, Jim, are quite different. The turns that the Andrettis are just going through now, turn 1 and turn 2, fairly steeply banked at about 9 degrees. Right here is a dog leg to the left. Top speeds reach right about here of 185, and now a very long, quite flat turn in which very few of the cars ever seem to handle really right. Now they're coming out onto the start-finish straightaway.
We have 2 race cams installed in cars to help follow the action today, and one of them is in the car of Bobby Rahal. You see right there, Rahal, who started on the outside of row number 2, is at the moment well up in the field, and that's a good view from inside Rahal's car as he chases the 2 Andretti from his position in 3rd place, right ahead of Kevin Cogan and Rick Mears. Our second race cam is installed in the car of a man who started all the way back in row 9, and that is local favorite Tom Sneva, who lives in Paradise Valley just on the other side of Phoenix, the only man who didn't sleep between hotel sheets last night, and will be able to follow the action from back in the pack early as Sneva tries to make his way up in the field. And Sam, take us around this quick 1-mile oval.
You'll see that there's a good deal of buffeting from Sneva's head. That's because of turbulence coming from the traffic ahead of him as he goes under the bridge and sweeps out into turn 4. This is the only part of the track that is straight right ahead of him here. It's a breather of only a couple of seconds before he dives into this turn. Uses the brakes very lightly, braking with his left foot, now getting back on the power. 3 lateral G's, Jim, here to the right, pressing the driver's body off to the right, and again, more G's in this little dog leg. Sneva gets past as he sets up for turn 3, this much flatter. There's a little bump in there. Now he's accelerating 3.5 G's because of the enormous aerodynamic downforce of these cars. So that is just 1 lap in about 23 seconds, average speed of over 160 miles an hour. It's a fast, tight track where an awful lot can happen.
Mario Andretti led qualifying at almost 165 miles per hour yesterday, and here is another look at Sneva as he continues to operate in the race car, as you saw a good view of the track from the race cam installed there. Mario Andretti, who won last week in the first of the 15 races that make up the IndyCar World Series, a road race in Long Beach, and who led qualifying here just as he did there. Of course, he's won more poles than any man in IndyCar racing history, so the fabulous story of the newly grandfathered Andretti continues in this, his 24th season of American racing. We are live at Phoenix for the Phoenix 200 race.
You see the 2 Andrettis already lapping slower traffic, Jim. In many ways, that is the story of the race, your ability to pass the cars that you are lapping here on this narrow track.
And we'll be back early live in the Phoenix 200 after this. Meanwhile, Tom Sneva had difficulty starting his car for the pace lap and has already pitted. In fact, he pitted before the yellow came out as a result of Bettenhausen's spin. So Tom Sneva losing ground right now, and Jack ARUTE will give us more on that. Jack?
Jim, it's a costly stop for Tom Sneva because of the fact that they had trouble starting the car. They fouled the plugs. Now, what's going on behind me is they're exchanging all the spark plugs in the machine. Now, one good part about this is he's not going down as many laps as he would have if the race was under green. That spin by Bettenhausen gave them some grace, but not enough to be competitive the rest of the day. Now, anybody that comes into the pits right now, it's four problems. You don't pit this early because you won't be able to make your 2 to 3 pit stops. Fabrizio Parbaza has been in, but that's just customary for a back marker.
And thank you very much, Jack. The early yellow flag creates the opportunity for us to get some more business obligations taken care of. We'll be back right after this. As we bring you back live to the Phoenix 200 with just about 20 miles down as they approach the 20-mile mark. In fact, Mario Andretti the leader, Michael Andretti in second place behind him, Kevin Kogan third. Kogan won this race exactly 1 year ago here on the Phoenix International Raceway, and in another 200-mile race that was held here this past fall, Michael Andretti scored his first victory on this race course. Mario Andretti hasn't won a race here since 1967, but a week ago he won the season opener at Long Beach. And a little bit earlier this week, Jack ARUTE asked Mario Andretti what benefit there was in getting that first victory of the season under his belt.
The main thing is how it affects the team. I think the team aspect is so important, and it's just the team that accomplished this, not just me. It's the only way to start, let's face it. I think it gives everybody just the kind of push and the kind of attitude that you need. It's a positive atmosphere all the way around, and you're just trying to continue to stay there, obviously, but like I said, there's no medicine like it.
All right, in Sam Posey, let's talk for a moment about the atmosphere in which Mario Andretti presently operates. The Lola chassis was maligned by some in recent years who felt that it had fallen technologically behind the March chassis, but that does not suddenly appear to be the case this year. And the Chevrolet engine, which powers it for the first time this year, is apparently the most powerful power plant being used in this form of racing.
Yes, Andretti is using the Chevrolet, Mario is, and his son is using the Cosworth, which has been the engine of choice over the last 10 years or more. But the Lola, it is true, was good only in road races last year and was very bad in the superspeedway races. So after Indianapolis, which was, you know, late in May, the Lola team began to rework their car with an idea to having a much better car for this year. And you know, their car is so much better that Rahal, the defending champion, his team actually shifted to the Lola cars for this year.
That was a big surprise. It is no surprise at the moment that Mario and Michael Andretti continue to run 1 and 2. Bobby Unser is the fourth member of our commentary team today, one of the greatest racers in the history of the sport, a man who won 4 races and led more laps than anyone else on this speedway. An observation about the leaders, Bobby?
The best race so far has been Roberto Guerrero, starting completely back at the back of the race. He's already pushing Al Jr. He's been gaining, he's going fast, been very good. Guerrero's been working on Al Jr. It's been a tremendous race going on for the last 5 laps. They've been running side by side in the corners.
That's a good point, Bobby Unser. As we mentioned earlier, Guerrero was forced to move all the way to the back of the pack, the last row, when his car, which had qualified in the second row, was found to be 2.5 pounds under the minimum weight. It's no surprise that it's performing well, but he certainly has passed a large number of cars early in the race.
And the battle that Bobby speaks of, Jim, is with Al Unser Jr., Bobby's nephew. You see him, now we're seeing the 2 Andrettis leading again. He was just on the left of your screen as we saw the battle with Guerrero. You see it's heating up for the lead considerably with Michael Andretti, Jim, right behind his dad.
Michael Andretti driving the traditional arrangement of March chassis and Cosworth engine. Last year, he was clearly, though he did not win the championship, the hot shoe on the circuit. The man who was most likely in any given week to win the pole, the leader through most of the early laps at Indianapolis before his setup went south. Michael Andretti would dearly love to get that first IndyCar championship this year, and it's ironic that his primary competition may be his dad.
Well, interestingly, though, the setup of his car is actually conservative. The Cosworth is thought to be the more reliable engine. Simply, we have a spin by Jeff McPherson. Yep. Car number 11. We're looking, that's just at the exit of turn 1, halfway between turn 1 and turn 2. McPherson, a rookie. Now we're starting to see the leaders pit. We see Rahal.
Yeah, yellow flag out. Mario Andretti has already gone into the pits. Rahal, as you point out, has also pitted. All of the leaders will be diving into the pits now to take advantage of this yellow flag, as this has occurred at the 30-mile mark. Now, had there been absolutely no caution flags, it might have been possible for many of the racers to get through this race with only 2 pit stops. But now that this sequence has taken place, each driver will clearly take more than 2 pit stops, and there will be a bit of a chess game throughout the race with regard to fuel consumption and pit stops. There's a good look at the number 5 car of Mario Andretti as he goes back out onto the track. His son Michael has already exited the pits, and we'll be back live after this. We are back live at the Phoenix International Raceway. Jim Lampley with Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, and Jack ARUTE. And with the cars still running under the yellow flag after Jeff McPherson's spin, technically for the moment the leader is car number 22, driven by 53-year-old Dick Simon, oldest man ever to start at Indianapolis. Now as they go green and come down the front straight, it is Bobby Rahal who dives into the lead ahead of Simon, hotly chased on the inside of the track by the orange car, and I believe that is the one of, no, that is not Roberto Guerrero's car. He's still a little bit farther in the pack. But it is Rahal with the lead, Simon in second place, Michael Andretti is in 4th place, and the bright red car in 3rd place with the yellow trim is that of Mario Andretti. So Rahal, Simon, Mario Andretti now, Michael Andretti in 4th place, Rick Mears in 5th place, and from behind them, Roberto Guerrero continues to try to make his way up through the pack after having started the race in the very back row.
So the 2 Andrettis have picked up the battle where they left off, with the exception of the fact that their leader here, Bobby Rahal, is now able to pull away from both of them because the Andrettis are being bottled up behind Dick Simon, except Mario Andretti tried to pass Simon on the inside there. You see them on the right of your screen as they went into turn 1, Jim.
Down the backstretch, which has a slight kink, or dogleg if you prefer, and now race control. Race control has made a correction and told us that Kevin Cogan is in fact the lead car on the track. Why is Cogan the lead car? Because during the yellow flag sequence, when all of the other leaders went into the pits, Cogan apparently never did make a pit stop. So Cogan is the only one of the lead cars on the track which has not yet had the benefit of a visit to the pits, and as a result, he has a 1-lap lead over the rest of the field. That's a situation which won't last forever, but if he gets lucky with a long extended period of green flags, he may be able to hold on to that 1-lap lead for a while.
Cogan's crew chief, Lee Dykstra, told me in no uncertain terms moments before the start, he said Kevin Cogan is going to finish 2nd today. Quite positive, and he is running well.
A year ago, Kevin Cogan won this particular race and was, during the early season, one of the hottest racers on the circuit, wound up with the best record for the year among racers in 500-mile races, including, of course, his 2nd place finish at Indianapolis. I'm told that Jack ARUTE has a piece of news from the Michael Andretti pit, so let's go to Jack right now.
And Jim, what we're seeing is the first page in pit strategy. Now, Barry Green is the crew chief on Michael Andretti's car, and as you alluded to, he pitted, and your leader, that Kevin Cogan, didn't. Now, Barry, you're a lap down because Kevin Cogan didn't pit. Does that concern you at all?
No, it doesn't concern us, Jack. You know, you got to play the yellows in these races. You can't mess around with greens. If we get caught in a green a little bit later, we'd go more than 1 lap down.
So now next pit for you, if all goes well, would be on lap 90.
Somewhere around there, you know, there's more than likely to be a yellow than before that, so we'll just play the yellows.
Now, the way they play the yellows is with this bank of computers right over here. They try and decipher just what's going to happen. But with electronics and techniques, you never know.
All right, so there's the strategy from Andretti's pit. Meanwhile, Roberto Guerrero continues to make his way up through the field, and you look at car number 7, Kevin Cogan, apparently slowing down. Could it be that Kogan is headed in for a pit stop? Let's follow him around onto the front straight and see, and definitely indeed he is. There goes Kogan into the pits under the green flag, so he will surrender his lead in the race. Meanwhile, Bobby Unser stands by with the new co-owner of the team in which Roberto Guerrero is involved, and he's the man who's made the hot move early in the race. A famous name in racing, Vince GRANATELLI, standing by with Bobby, and let's go there now.
Vince, Roberto has done quite well. He's come up from the back. You're up into the kind of the lead serial right now. What's your game plan? What are you going to do now that's different?
Well, we're just going to keep right on moving as fast as we can through here, of course, and the yellow light really helped us in this situation, allowed us to close it up a little bit. We've already made our first pit stop, and we're presently running 6th.
How about your mileage? Can he run this hard all day, or does he need more yellow flags?
No, I think our mileage is okay. I think we'll be okay.
Okay, let's get to Jack ARUTE and get in Kogan's pit. Jack?
Well, Bobby, Kevin Kogan has come in, and it's mayhem here in pit road. Kogan is sitting resolutely in the car. The crew has gone to work, and really what they're doing is trying to find out what the problem is. They're not quite sure at this point. The engine just died. As soon as we get something, we'll give it back to you.
All right, thanks, Jack. And if Jack sounds a little out of breath, that's because it's about a 200-yard sprint from Michael Andretti's pit to Kevin Kogan's pit, and I'm frankly startled that he made it. Meanwhile, Bobby Rahal has reassumed the lead on the racetrack, and you made the point earlier, Sam Posey, about the relative performance of Rahal's car as opposed to those of the two Andrettis, Mario and Michael.
Well, the astonishing thing, of course, Rahal is operating with a chassis that the team knew nothing about last year at this time. They went to England. They were all set to buy another set of the March chassis that they had been running and won the championship with last year. And then their crew chief, Steve Horn, took a look at the chassis they're running now, the Lola, and said, let's use it instead. It looks better. And suddenly, Rahal is looking very, very good with it. And Jack ARUTE has now gotten the story on Kevin Kogan and is there with him. Jack?
Sam, you talk about high tech. Well, here's the problem with Kevin Kogan. It's in the electronics. One of two areas. Behind this man's legs, and he's covering them up on purpose, is the spark box and the fuel metering device. They have withdrawn both from the car, and they're attempting to replace them because they're not sure which one's the problem, but they're pretty sure it's one of the two.
So there is a certain amount of guesswork involved in this extremely highly developed science. And right now, the guessing is going on in Kevin Kogan's pit. But on the track, the leaders are piling up laps. They have been Kogan's last hurrah early. Bobby Rahal, defending championship auto racing team series and Indianapolis 500 champion, leads Mario Andretti and Fireball Roberto Guerrero. We are back 1/4 of the way through the Phoenix 200 automobile race, and you are live in the lead car of number 1, Bobby Rahal. Mario Andretti chasing him. Behind the two of them, number 4, Roberto Guerrero, the biggest story of the day because Guerrero, after being disqualified for having his car weigh in under the minimum weight after qualifying here, was forced to move to the very back row, and he has moved all the way from position 22 to position 3 in just 50 miles. Mario closing in a little bit on Rahal from behind as you watch the performance of Bobby's Lola Cosworth from the cockpit.
Well, more to the point, he's just passed Sneva there. You see his car handling. Sneva right in front of him on the road. That's right. You see how well Bobby's car is handling. See the way he turns in, and it takes the turn exactly as he plans it. He doesn't have to put in a lot of correction one way or another, and he is able to pass slower cars easily on the outside. When I say easily, it's a nerve-wracking proposition. You see Rick Mears has gone behind the pit wall. Jim, that's a bad sign for the two-time Indianapolis champion Rick Mears in the new Penske Chevrolet.
And we're used to offering so much respect to the Penske team, but with the new Penske designed chassis powered by Chevrolet engines in only their second year out on the circuit under the Penske banner, neither the car of Rick Mears nor Danny Sullivan is considered among the absolute hottest favorites in this race.
They seem a little disorganized, but look, Mario Andretti is now right behind Bobby Rahal, Jim, as they go into turn 1.
The brighter red car is the one which belongs to Andretti. And the slightly darker red, you can see the number 1 is that of Bobby Rahal. Now that is Andretti to the left of the screen. The car to the right in that previous shot was that of Roberto Guerrero. And here goes Guerrero by Andretti and into second place. And he passed him easily on the outside of the track.
That's a move we saw him practicing yesterday, Jim, when he knew he was going to have to come up through the field because of his bad position on the grid, and he made it work on the outside of turn 4. That was superiority I am surprised that anyone can show over Mario Andretti at this point in the race.
Now you saw how quickly Rahal and Guerrero were able to slide by Tom Sneva's green car on the inside. So they filter their way through traffic. There goes Rahal, again looking for an inside spot to pass one of the cars which is being lapped.
That is the car of Danny Sullivan, the red and white car just ahead of Rahal. There's Rahal with Guerrero right behind him.
And Roberto Guerrero continues to stalk Bobby Rahal, the leader. There are 30,000 fans here. They are sophisticated racing fans. There will be a huge roar which goes up if Guerrero takes the lead, because they're all well aware that he started the day at the absolute tail end of the field. Meanwhile, as we watch that battle, let's revisit Jack ARUTE.
Of the sport's top guns that have already retired from the race. Kevin Kogan out after they changed the spark plugs. He's gone to the garage. And Rick Mears, you're the next one out. What happened?
Well, I don't know, really something, I think, let go in the motor. But, you know, the 16 was really working well, and felt like we were running competitive. We were just kind of trying to bide our time and save the tires and get to the end of the race, but wasn't meant to be.
Rick, with all the research and development that you've done on this Chevrolet engine, it looks like Mario Andretti is getting the job done, not the Penske organization.
Well, it looks like he's running well, and he has been going good, and I'm glad to see it for Chevrolet, but I'd just soon be the other way around.
Indy's next. How do you think?
I think we'll be all right there.
That's the story from the pitch, gentlemen.
So the two early departures are two of the biggest names in the sport, Kevin Kogan and Rick Mears. Meanwhile, on the track, Bobby Rahal continues to lead Roberto Guerrero and Mario Andretti. They are just about a third of the way through this 200-mile race as we revisit the Rahal cockpit.
Well, Jim, the race of the day so far belongs to Roberto Guerrero, the Colombian driver who so nearly won the Miami Grand Prix last year. He started way down here in 22nd place, Guerrero did. And slowly he made his way up through the field. After 5 laps, he had come up to 12th. After 10 laps, he was in 10th. After 20 laps, Guerrero was up to 8th place. After 30 laps, he was in 7th. Now, of course, he's moved up and is running 2nd. By comparison, Bobby Rahal, who started 3rd, it took a while for him to get past the Andrettis. He took the lead, and now we're seeing those two drivers nose to tail.
Now, it appears for the moment that Guerrero has settled into a comfortable second place position, no longer chasing right on the rear wheel of Bobby Rahal. Could it be that after having made the move all the way from 22nd place, Sam, he's now comfortable to stalk Rahal rather than to want to go on by him?
I think so, definitely.
All right, so we are live in the Phoenix 200, exactly 1/3 of the way through the race. Bobby Rahal, defending Indianapolis 500 champion, is the leader, and we'll be back. We're back live in Phoenix. You look at positions 1 through 6, and name number 6 there is that of Emerson Fittipaldi, who also, like Guerrero, started in the back row. So while Guerrero has made his way spectacularly from place 22 to place number 2, Fittipaldi has only slightly more quietly moved from place 21 to place number 6. And here's a man with a glorious background, Sam, twice World Formula One Grand Prix champion. What a feather it would be in his racing cap to add a championship in this series to the 2 he won in that glamorous racing series.
You see Michael Andretti right in front of him in the blue and yellow car there. Andretti is in 5th, Fittipaldi in 6th, and it certainly would. The only other man ever to win this championship, of course, and the European championship is Mario Andretti, and Emerson Fittipaldi would dearly like to repeat that. Interestingly, though, Jim, he is running a Chevrolet engine. We've seen the engine fail in Mears' car, and we've seen the electrical trouble that Emerson's teammate Kevin Kogan had just a few laps ago, so he may be running on borrowed time.
Emerson Fittipaldi, however, was the one man who threatened Mario Andretti a week ago at Long Beach in Andretti's 95-lap domination of that 95-lap race. Meanwhile, Bobby Unser has had a chance to resume a position upstairs and check out the racetrack. And Bobby, my question to you is, based on your gut instinct and your feel for what's going out on the track, which car is performing best at this stage of the race?
Well, so far, roughly 73, 75 laps into this race, it's been Roberto Guerrero. The boy started clear at the back. He's really been the shining star all day. Of course, we got to remember the yellow flag helped him close up a lot. But in the meantime, before that happened, he passed an awful lot of cars. I think right now, he's not cruising, he's hurrying, but I don't think he's got his boost turned up all the way. I think he's still a possible contender.
All right, the reference to boost has to do with the pounds, or inches, I should say, of boost which accompany the turbocharger as it aids the engine in developing power. And Bobby makes a good point. He thinks that Guerrero may not have the boost turned up all the way, Sam, as he tries to both build speed and conserve fuel consumption.
Yeah, because the more boost you run, the faster you go, the more horsepower you have, but the more fuel you use up. So you're always trying to hit just the right compromise. And Jack ARUTE does have a story about Guerrero that may shed some light on this. Jack?
Well, Sam, early on in the telecast, you talked about Roberto Guerrero having to go to the back of the field for being 2.5 pounds light. Here's what happened. When they weighed the car early in the day, they found it right on the money. Then in a random weigh-in after qualifying, they found him the 2.5 pounds shy. Now, what does 2.5 pounds represent? Well, it could be that when they drain the fuel tank, and they weigh these cars dry weight, as they call it, they didn't get all the fuel out. How much fuel is 2.5 pounds? Just this much. But right now, with the way he's running, it's just so much fuel down the drain.
Indeed it is, as Roberto Guerrero has turned that disqualification, for the moment at least, into a moot point. His car is the easiest one to follow visually around the track. It is the bright fluorescent color on the right of the screen right there. Rahal's the much darker red, and so you can keep up with them easily as they make their way through the trailing cars. LUYENDYK in car number 71 has moved up to third place. Another refugee from European racing who has been learning the ropes of American racing, and the biggest adjustment, of course, for those guys, Sam, is learning how to race on oval tracks. Probably most particularly this one.
Well, that's what makes LUYENDYK's achievement as of this moment so astonishing, because it is Phoenix, and there you see the view from Tom Sneva's cockpit as he's in tight traffic passing Johnny Rutherford, one of the Bettenhausens, there on the right of him, very tight traffic, and that is exactly the problem that faces LUYENDYK, is the difficulty of passing guys on a track, an oval like this, where you see Sneva on the left in front of LUYENDYK, where you often have to pass on the outside. To a road racer, that's an unknown move, and it's something that Fittipaldi, for example, another great road racer with no oval experience 3 years ago, has had to learn and has learned. It's psychologically, Jim, to start around a guy on the outside, especially if a very fast turn, you have to put complete trust. You see Sneva there, you see LUYENDYK there. You have to put complete trust in the fact Sneva there on the left as they both move up to pass Sullivan. You have to put complete trust in the fact that the guy you're passing won't move out suddenly on you. You really feel that you're hung out in the breeze there.
We are 84 miles into this 200-mile race. The first 30 miles were led by Mario Andretti. Bobby Rahal has now led for more than 40 miles. But the big story has been the push all the way from the back to near the front of Colombian Roberto Guerrero. And a couple of days ago, Jack ARUTE had a conversation with the extremely telegenic and interesting Guerrero, in which Guerrero discussed the gamut of emotions that a driver is likely to experience during the course of a 200-mile oval track race here.
Well, it's pretty much a high all the time. I mean, you like we said before, you have to be concentrating so hard the whole race, and with the traffic even more, that you know, when this is a place that I've always, you know, when your car works well, it's a lot of fun. You really can enjoy it because you can pass people on the outside. You can, you know, get away with things that you couldn't get away with any other place. At the same time, if your car isn't working, it could be a very long day, you know, and it could be very frustrating when your car doesn't work, because then the difference between the fast cars and the cars that aren't working so well, it's very considerable.
And as we return to live action, Guerrero has moved past Bobby Rahal and taken the lead in the race. So Roberto Guerrero, starting at the very back of the pack, has less than halfway into the Phoenix 200, taken over the lead. A lot of anticipation surrounds Guerrero, Sam Posey. As you see him on the left of the screen there, holding off Rahal just behind him. He's never won a race in this series, and a lot of people seem to believe that once he wins one, he might win several more very shortly after that.
Yeah, that he might just explode. Often that first race is so hard to get, and you get it, you relax a little, and you seem to win a lot more. You know, when Jack ARUTE, you see Guerrero being shadowed right now, though, by Bobby Rahal, and in traffic that close, we can expect anything. There's Bobby Rahal, the view from his cockpit. He has got to stay with Guerrero. He can't afford to let him start getting away. The race that Guerrero almost won last year was the last race of the season down in Miami. Guerrero had a convincing lead with 1 lap to go. He ran out of fuel. The amount of fuel that he lacked to win that race was exactly the amount of fuel that Jack ARUTE just poured out on the ground when he gave us that demonstration. So these races are won and lost by very, very small margins.
Guerrero also, to be pointed out, has very quietly compiled an outstanding record at Indianapolis, where he has become quite accustomed to finishing in the top 5. And you watch the leader, Roberto Guerrero, in the fluorescent orange car from the cockpit of the man in second place, Bobby Rahal. We're going to take a look now at all of the leaders. Close to halfway through the Phoenix 200 automobile race. We have word that Guerrero is considering a pit stop perhaps the next time around. That will certainly contain the complexion of the leaderboard, which he right now stands at the top of.
And if he starts to slow in turn 3 and 4 to pull into the pits, we may see him raise his hand to signal to Rahal that he's going in. No, he's staying out. Watch Rahal's thumb on his steering wheel. Rahal had a chance there for a second. That means Rahal is radioing to his crew, probably at this point in the thing, trying to decide when their pit stop should be. He may want to try to stay out and resume the lead if he possibly can.
So when the thumb moves up, it's pressing a button which allows him to speak to his crew chief. Is that right?
Correct. All right, now we're once again not going into the pits. Guerrero not taking the pit. You see him threading his way through traffic. Rahal now is going to be held up by the car right in front of him. The word is that from Jack ARUTE that Guerrero will be coming in the next time around. Now watch, as he goes into turn 4, we may see him suddenly slow and pull to the inside if Jack's report is correct.
He comes out of turn 4 right now, and no, he's going to stay out again. Oh! Very close racing on the front straight as Arie Luyendyk had to dive just inside of Guerrero, and Guerrero goes to the outside to pass the Dick Simon car coming out of turn 2.
And Rahal had to go to the outside to make a pass as well. So you see how easily, Jim, anything can go wrong when a situation is as volatile. See, Rahal will have to move out away from the line he likes over some bumps.
All right, here comes Guerrero into the pits. Let's go down to Jack ARUTE.
Well, the crew went wild when he didn't come in the pits the last time. Of course, he was blocked somewhat on that pass by Luyendyk, but now he comes in very nicely. They're going to the rear tires. They're taking both of them off, and the right front as well. Kind of the standard situation here at this point in the race. Taking on fuel, this is a normal pit stop. We'll see all the leaders doing this shortly, taking on all the fuel that they can. A long stop, but methodical, and he's off and away.
According to my calculations, he went about 70 miles between pit stops, which is just about the fuel maximum.
Yeah, it means he's getting excellent fuel. The team, of course, stung by what happened last year, has probably made sure of their calculations this time, although every team, frankly, Jim, pushes it to the absolute limit. That pit stop, about average for this time in the race, the 16.5 seconds. You see Rahal coming in now. We'll get a comparison, obviously, between the two leaders. Jack ARUTE is there.
Now Bobby Rahal has come into pit road. He flips up his visor, takes a cooling, refreshing drink while his crew goes to work. They too are changing 3 tires, leaving the left front alone. They're taking on fuel. Now this may be a little early for all of the leaders, but at this point in time it would be maybe the right move to make. Don't run it out as far as you possibly can go, because you want to make sure that you've got enough to go the distance, and also there should be a caution shortly.
Keep in mind that all of these pit stops are taking place under the green flag. Rahal's pit stop just over 15 seconds, perhaps a second and a half faster than that of Roberto Guerrero. And there's a look at Guerrero, who is back out on the racetrack. Rahal, of course, has exited the pits as well and is back out there.
Is ahead of him. Rahal is now ahead of Guerrero. Rahal ahead of Guerrero as a result of the exchange of pit stops. Rahal's crew pitting him in about a second faster in terms of the amount of times that cars were actually stopped in the pits, but there are other factors in the pit stop. It's how fast you come in, it's how fast you get back out. But anyway, Rahal got the better of Guerrero in that exchange.
So once again, Roberto Guerrero chases Bobby Rahal from behind. Ari Luyendyk, Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Jose Garza now. All of these cars have moved up into contention and maintain a position near the front of the pack. Michael Andretti comes into the pits, and as the action continues halfway through the Phoenix 200, we watch once again Roberto Guerrero flying down the front straight and giving Bobby Rahal all he can handle. Things happen so fast here. It's a completely different visual perspective on this kind of open wheel oval track racing than, for instance, the perspective at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the speeds are much higher, but where the racetrack at 2.5 miles is much more wide open. A whole different trip at Phoenix. We're halfway through with a pitched battle between Rahal and Guerrero and others, and we'll be back after this commercial and a word from our local stations. We are back live at the Phoenix International Raceway. I am Jim Lampley with Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, and Jack ARUTE. If you followed this kind of IndyCar racing with us before, you know that one of the stories within the story is the constant struggle to set the chassis and the suspension up in the right way to take advantage of conditions on the racetrack. Mario Andretti today led for the first 30 laps and had a car which appeared to be handling beautifully. At the 30-mile mark, under a caution flag, several of the leaders took pit stops, among them Andretti. And since that time, Andretti's car simply has not performed in the same way that it did for the first 30 miles of the race. For more on that, let's go down to pit row and Jack ARUTE.
Well, Jim, of course, there's a number of reasons why that could be. One could be the handling going away on the car. Two, it could be the motor itself. In talking to Tyler Alexander, Mario Andretti's new crew chief, he thinks that it may be the handles on the race car. They're trying to chase the racetrack right now. Now, the way they can resolve that is, one, through adjusting the suspension on the car, or through stagger on the left rear tire. Goodyear produces 3 different size left rear tires so that they can get staggered. That's the circumference around the race tire itself. But during the pit stop just moments ago, he had another problem befall him. He stalled the car and was in for 32 seconds. When it goes bad a whole bunch.
And nobody knows the vicissitudes of this kind of racing better than Mario, who sometimes seems to be the most dominant race car driver in the world, but whose record is fraught with the kinds of frustrations that are illustrated by the fact that he hasn't won here, for instance, for 20 years, that he hasn't won at Indianapolis, but one time in his brilliant career. There are the leaders in the race at this moment. We are past the halfway point. Bobby Rahal in first place, Roberto Guerrero in second place, Luyendyk, Andretti, Fittipaldi, and others chasing this.
Well, the point is now, will Mario, who is about to be lapped, become a factor in that sense? Will he hold up the leaders? He is a tenacious man, Mario Andretti. He does not want to fall one lap back. You see Rahal, you see Guerrero, Jim.
And Roberto Guerrero once again goes by Rahal and into the lead. He led the race for an 8-lap interval just a little while ago, and then had to pit under a green flag at the 100-mile mark, as did Bobby Rahal. Since that time, Rahal had held the edge, but now Guerrero, who apparently has the faster accelerating car, has once again seized the lead. And there, it appears that Guerrero wants to put some distance between himself and Bobby, and is able to do so. So far, there has been nothing to suggest that the Guerrero car is anything short of close to perfect on this day on this racetrack.
Well, certainly the Andretti decision was to get out of the way of the leaders. That was uncommonly polite, that move, but it also convinces me that Mario did not feel in his cockpit that he could hold the leaders off. If he thought he could, he would have tenaciously tried to stay ahead of Guerrero. It's extraordinary that Guerrero, who started at the back of the grid in 22nd place, is now comfortably leading and has piled up more than a lap lead over Mario Andretti, the man who started in the pole position. such is the volatility of this race here in Phoenix.
Roberto Guerrero is 28 years old, born in Medellin, Colombia, now lives in San Juan Capistrano, California. He has never won a race in this form of racing. Most people believe he will do so very soon, maybe today. We are back, and after 120 miles of the 200-mile race today in Phoenix, Arizona, Danny Sullivan is in the pits and has some trouble. Now, first, let's go to Bobby Unser for an observation. Bobby?
Well, pit stops have really made a big difference in the race. It helped Roberto get up into the possibilities of leading in the race, and not only leading it, he's controlling the race. He's leading the race, running away with it. He's pulled out about 5 to 6 seconds ahead of Bobby Rahal right now, but they still have another pit stop to go. We're going to watch and see who will come in first or who will come in second. That's between Roberto Guerrero and Bobby Rahal. They both should be due around 160 miles.
Very good point, Bobby Unser. Since the last pit stop took place at the 100-mile mark, nobody in the race could possibly make it through without another one. The maximum fuel tank capacity, about 72 miles. So, as we get ready to go visit the race cam in the cockpit of Tom Sneva, we must point out that, just as Bobby Unser said, somewhere around the 160-mile mark, maybe 35 or 40 miles from now, the leaders will be pitting once again. That will set up the final stage of the race. You watch Guerrero as he tracks Tom Sneva down the front straight. And quickly, let's go as we look at the race cam view from Tom Sneva's car. Very shortly, Guerrero should be going by him, and there he is, right there. You saw how rapidly Guerrero was able to go by Sneva. Now let's go to Jack ARUTE for a word on Danny Sullivan.
Oftentimes we talk about fuel consumption and electronics on the car and don't really give the indication of how they're interrelated. Well, in the case of Danny Sullivan, one caused a problem in the other. What happened was they turned the boost down on the car because they weren't running as they had hoped they would. What that in effect did was create a problem with their fuel metering light. The light did not go on, they ran out of fuel, they had to push the car, Ralph De Palma style, back into the pits, and that's all she wrote for Danny Sullivan.
And that underlines the point once again, Sam Posey, that perhaps a bit surprisingly, the Penske cars at this moment are not among the top echelon.
Not yet. Penske is a very determined gentleman. Don't count him out, but they have gotten off to a slow start this year. Let's see if we can get an interval between Roberto Guerrero and Bobby Rahal. Guerrero at this stage is pulling away. And let's see, there is Guerrero, and here coming to the line is Rahal. So it's a little under 4 seconds. In a couple of laps, we'll try it again and see whether that lead is being extended. At this point, though, it's a little hard to tell. There's so much traffic. Guerrero can be seen to be pulling away, but then he will get into a bunch of traffic and be slow.
Well, and also the point remains that there will be at least one more pit stop, and every car will exit that pit stop with a slightly different setup, a different set of tires, a different orientation to the racetrack. It could well be that the car Guerrero is driving right at this moment will turn out to be vastly superior to the one that he drives for the last 30 laps of the race. Bobby Rahal told us earlier about coming into this particular season as a slightly different man, a man with the accomplishments of having won the Indianapolis 500 and the IndyCar World Series Championship a year ago. He pointed out how that gives him a slightly differing perspective in 1987.
Well, I guess it gives you more confidence, you know, that until you've done something, you're never really sure what it takes, I suppose. I mean, you think you know, but having done it now, certainly going back to Indianapolis, I know for one thing I'll have a lot more fun going back there because it's, as you know, it's sort of like you've done nothing until you've won Indy. So it'll be, I think we're going to enjoy it a lot more. But I think overall it gives me and the team more confidence that we can not just win Indy, but that we can win a championship and be competitive over the entire course of a season.
In the closing laps of his dramatic victory over Kevin Kogan in Indianapolis a year ago, you watched that lady, Debbie Rahal, as she took care of her job and tried to calm her excited nerves in the Rahal pit and then broke into unabashed celebration. Here, she watches her husband as he, in second place, chases an elusive Roberto Guerrero. We'll be back to Phoenix right after this. We are back live at the Phoenix 200. If you only followed the Indianapolis 500 and no other race in the sport, you might be under the impression that Roberto Guerrero is one of the greatest names in the sport. After all, he was second at Indianapolis in 1984, third there in 1985, fourth there in 1986. But Guerrero has never been able to be quite as consistently successful elsewhere on the IndyCar racing circuit as he has been at Indianapolis. And a lot of people have been waiting for a long time for him to make a breakthrough and win his first IndyCar race. That just might happen today. If Roberto Guerrero has managed to take care of all of the proper business with regard to fuel consumption and getting ready for the last 60 miles of this race. For more on that, let's go now to Bobby Unser, who's standing by at Guerrero's pit. Bobby?
I'm with Vince Granatelli again. Vince, Roberto's leading the race. We know he has to stop again. Does he, in fact, have enough fuel to finish the race at the pace he's going after the next pit stop?
Everything's according to schedule. Looks like we're okay for fuel.
You don't think Roberto's going to run out of fuel going this fast?
Well, I hope not. I don't think so. Everything looks good for us.
Everybody's in a good mood down here. They're all happy. I don't see anybody worried about the fuel.
All right, Bobby, it is a nice smile on Granatelli's face indeed, but the subject is germane because of what happened to Guerrero at Miami at the end of last season, Sam.
He was leading, having demonstrated exactly this kind of speed when he ran out of gas on the last lap, and Al Unser Jr. Was able to overtake him and win the race. Ran out of fuel. You see him lapping Mario Andretti. Let's see how if the interval has changed now. Guerrero in deep traffic passes the line right there, and you see enormous space. He is in traffic. Here comes Bobby Rahal. The lead has grown immeasurably in the last 10 laps since we timed it. He has put on about 4.9 seconds, which is convincing, I would say, because he has been in traffic part of that time. It's not a question of Guerrero having been on a clear track and Rahal not, Jim. Look at him go down the inside.
Of course, the traffic you saw, and you are seeing Guerrero trying to pick his way through right now, indicates that perhaps temporarily Rahal will close that gap a little bit within the next couple of laps. But then, once Guerrero is out of traffic and Rahal is into it, then Roberto may have a chance to stretch it back to an even greater margin than the 8.5 seconds or so that you saw right there. Roberto Guerrero, incidentally, told us just a few days ago his opinion on the question of whether it is harder to run speeds at Indianapolis on the 2.5-mile, four-cornered oval there, or here on the tightest, fastest 1-mile circuit in the world at Phoenix. Here's what Guerrero said about that.
Personally, I think to me, Phoenix is one of the hardest racetracks we go to. You know, it's very difficult to go fast here, and you know, physically it's a lot harder because you're basically in a corner all the time. There's a lot of G-forces, so I believe it's harder to run fast here than it is to run at Indianapolis.
There is the leader in the fluorescent orange car number 4, Roberto Guerrero. If you've just joined us, we are almost 3/4 of the way through the 200-mile, 200-lap race here in Phoenix, Arizona, which is the second of the 15 races that make up the IndyCar Racing World Series. Roberto Guerrero is getting ready to lap a car once again.
That is the third-place car of Arie Luyendyk, and although Guerrero is about to put him, Luyendyk, that is, 2 laps down, I would still say Luyendyk, to his credit, is driving the race of his life, Jim. He's never done this well on an oval. So today is a day where some of the big names, the Andrettis, the highest placed at the moment, you see Michael in 4th, the Unsers are not amongst the absolute leaders. We're seeing some new names, Guerrero, Luyendyk, and this is a sport in the process of change right now.
And just to emphasize, the numbers you saw to the right of the screen indicate number of laps down. So Guerrero and Rahal are at this point of the race the only 2 drivers on the lead lap, and every other car in the race is at least 2 laps behind them. Barring some unusual circumstances or mechanical failure for either or both of the 2 leaders, it is likely to be a 2-car battle the rest of the way between the Colombian Roberto Guerrero and Bobby Rahal, the defending IndyCar champion. We'll be back after this commercial and a word from our local stations. As we bring it back live to Phoenix, the yellow flag has just come out. And there you see Bobby Rahal pulling out of the pits. Rahal came into the pits for his pit stop, 44 laps to go in the race, he would be able to make it the rest of the way without another stop. Same is true of Roberto Guerrero, whose car is in the pits right now. The yellow flag, we are told, came out because of debris on the track in turn 1. There was no mishap involving any of the race cars for us to tell you about. Now Guerrero goes back out. Rahal's pit stop, Sam, was slow.
It was slow because he stalled the car, but they got it going again spectacularly fast. They restarted the car very quickly, and he lost only 13 seconds in the exchange to Guerrero. But, Jim, when Guerrero went out, he pulled sharply to the right. You saw it there. He went over a tire that was sitting in his pit with his right rear suspension. He could conceivably now have a misaligned right rear suspension as a result of that. These cars are built very, very strongly, and I kind of think he's probably okay, but when the race resumes under the green and they go back to full speed, we won't really know until then. Guerrero did have that mistake in the pits.
Now theoretically, the last fuel stop has now taken place, so barring another yellow flag in the race, you would expect the leaders to try to make it all the way in from here. There have been 3 distinct stages in the race. The first 30 laps were led by Mario Andretti, as he and his son, Michael, who had qualified in the front row, dueled for the lead. But during that period of time, Roberto Guerrero was making a spectacular run from the back of the pack, where he started in dead last position, place 22 after being disqualified for measuring under the minimum weight required by championship auto racing teams, all the way up into the top 5. Then Bobby Rahal assumed leadership in the race as Mario Andretti's car slowed down, and Rahal led for 56 laps. But just before the 100-mile mark of the race, Roberto Guerrero passed him for the first time. And since that time, for the last 65 miles or so, it has been quite apparent that Guerrero's car is performing better than the others on the track. You see him right now wiggling back and forth as they move at subdued speed under the yellow flag. Perhaps testing, Sam, to see if that suspension's okay.
I think that's exactly what's happening. Is obviously some doubt in Roberto's mind. I mean, he knows he ran over that tire because the car took a tremendous jolt. It tipped up a few degrees when he went over. So he has got to be worried. Now, all right, let's say the car actually handles fine and he's able to resume the speed that he was running. Still in the back of his mind on this extremely dangerous track has got to be the fear that he may have weakened that right rear suspension, and that at some point between now and the end of the race, which fortunately is not too far off, that he may have a right rear suspension failure. It's that sort of thing that really preys on the driver's mind.
Green flag. Here they go. And Guerrero should be able to find out pretty shortly whether or not the performance of his car has been compromised. It is Guerrero who leads over Rahal now by 1 lap according to part official scoring. We'll have to have that checked because...
That's because Rahal ducked into the pits so quickly under the yellow, Jim, that the other cars were still proceeding at full speed. They had not picked up the pace car yet. Rahal made what I think is a traditional tactical error. We've seen that happen a good deal in Winston Cup racing. Let's have another look at what happened with Guerrero in that pit stop when he ran over his own tire. It was as he was leaving. You see the tire right in the center of the screen there in the foreground. Here goes Guerrero. He is going to clobber that tire. Well, not clobber, no, but well, that gives me confidence. It wasn't as big a hit as I thought. As I said, the suspension is very strong on these cars. I have a little more confidence that he's going to be okay.
More a foul tip, I should say, than a line drive.
Exactly.
Let's go down to Jack ARUTE.
Jim, we've talked with Billy Camphausen, who's the spokesman for CART down here on pit road, and indeed, running over that tire is an infraction of the rules. What's going on right now behind me and upstairs in the booth is a discussion with Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward. They are going to black flag Roberto Guerrero, bring him in for a stop and go for running over that tire.
Now that could cause him to lose a lap, which would put Guerrero and Rahal back on the same lap, would it not, Sam?
Yes, it certainly would. Now, a stop and go is literally that. You come into the pit, you're obliged to stop there, come to a dead stop, and then at the signal of one of the stewards, you're allowed to accelerate back out. I would guess that that would cost him, I don't know if it'll cost him a full lap. It's going to be really tense to see.
Well, if it's going to happen, Guerrero is going to want it to happen as soon as possible so that it does not create havoc with 20 or 15 laps to go in the race. As of the moment, he has completed 164 laps, so he's got 36 miles to go. Remember, they're traveling at an average speed of somewhere above 135 or 140 miles per hour, so it's not going to take terribly long time. There's Wally Dallenbach, Championship Auto Racing Teams' competition director and the chief steward at this race, as he makes the call. And now let's go down to Bobby Unser in the Guerrero pit. Bobby?
All right, here comes Roberto in right now. It's going to be a stop and go penalty. Should be a real quick one. Here he comes right now. He's going to stop. There he should be gone, and there he goes. That's going to really... Yes. Just a moment. Let me get Vince here. Vince, what happened? We thought there was no penalty for that. We noticed you had a stop and go penalty. What did CART say about that?
Well, evidently, I don't know that they saw it or they didn't see it, but evidently somebody complained about it. And of course, that's the rule, and we've obviously had a few oppositions this race anyway, but we're still going to go with it. We're real happy. Running over a tire is a rule infraction, and that necessitates a stop and go penalty. Is that correct? That's correct. Stop and then go right on, and that's what we did. Well, Roberto's certainly been fast, but this is going to be a terrible setback for him.
Not all that bad, though, Bobby, for the moment, because he did maintain his lead, or so the scoring system is telling me that Guerrero maintained his lead. We just matted a graphic that said that Rahal is the leader.
One problem that Guerrero had, Jim, he left the pit so fast that he got to the end of the pit lane and made the turn back out on the track faster than he ever has before. He actually went off into the dirt briefly as he was trying to rejoin the track. So you can imagine the excitement in the Guerrero cockpit at this point. The relatively uneventful race for him up to this point, if you can call anybody's race at Phoenix uneventful, has suddenly turned bad for him, or at least very difficult in the last few moments.
Well, we are checking to be sure, but I believe that Roberto Guerrero remains the leader in the race, and that he leads by a margin of 5 seconds over Bobby Rahal. It is indeed Roberto Guerrero who does hold on to the lead. I've just gotten confirmation from official scoring. So, with 30 miles to go in the Phoenix 200, Roberto Guerrero and Bobby Rahal remain the only two cars on the lead lap. Guerrero continues to nurse about a 5-second lead over the defending Indianapolis 500 champion. We'll be back after this. Back live at Phoenix, Jim Lampley with Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, and Jack ARUTE. As you look at the leaders, we'll point out that this broadcast is being produced under authority granted by Championship Auto Racing Teams for the private use of our audience. Any reproduction of this broadcast in any form without the express written permission of Championship Auto Racing Teams is expressly prohibited. Briefly, let's recap the sequence which you just witnessed. A yellow flag was out as we came back from commercial. Bobby Rahal made a tactical error, pitting before the pace car was in place, therefore costing himself a lap and going a lap down to Roberto Guerrero. But seconds later, Guerrero ran over a tire in his own pit, sustained a stop-and-go penalty from CART control, which forced him to go back into the pits, stop briefly, and then come back out. And that narrowed what had been a huge, in fact, one full lap lead for Guerrero back down to a matter of seconds. Right now, we're going to get interval timing now on Guerrero's lead over Bobby Rahal. Sam?
You see Roberto Guerrero streaking through between turn 3 and turn 4. When he comes up to the start-finish line, we will start the clock and see what the distance back. Now, it is balanced between 3 seconds and 8 seconds. You see right now it's about 5.7 seconds to Rahal. So at this point, I timed the wrong car. That's not the first time I've done something like that.
There is such a huge preponderance of red cars in IndyCar racing this year. All right, there's the start as Guerrero goes by.
Thank you, Jim. That's a charitable interpretation. I used to drive him, not time him. I see it now. He's behind Sneva, and there we go. Okay, 10.5 seconds, which is surprising to me. It's much more than we might have anticipated. So the point is that Guerrero is streaking away. We saw Al Unser Jr. going into the pits in his March Cosworth, a conservatively set up a car that seems nonetheless to have failed on this hot day.
Just as Rahal's team was switching from a March chassis to a Lola chassis over the off-season, Al Unser Jr.'s team switched from the Lola chassis to the March chassis, a move which has not yet paid off, though he finished second at Long Beach in a road race there a week ago. He was a distant second in a race in which Mario Andretti led all 95 laps. We have similar dominance now in the closing laps at Phoenix. Unless something goes wrong for Roberto Guerrero, he appears headed for his first victory in the IndyCar World Series form of racing.
Look
But
at him.
long way to go, 19 miles.
Look at his superiority as he comes up on Michael Andretti in the blue and yellow car. Michael Andretti, who of course would have fought hard to keep him at bay earlier in the race, and now knows that he's going 3 laps down at this stage.
So we will be back for the concluding 15 miles or so of the Phoenix 200. Roberto Guerrero still leading Bobby Rahal. We are back live at Phoenix, and we'll be here until the conclusion of this 200-mile race. Roberto Guerrero has got close to a half-lap lead on this 1-mile oval track over Bobby Rahal. Ari Luyendyk, running a remarkable race, is in 3rd place, and I say remarkable because Luyendyk has a long background in road racing, but has had to learn oval track racing from the ground up. Nevertheless, Luyendyk is not on the lead lap. No other car in the race is, besides those of the 2 leaders, Guerrero and Rahal. One man who has not been among the leaders at all today was Al Unser Jr., one of the best and most consistent racers on the circuit, currently out of the race as he stands by with Jack ARUTE. Jack?
And Jimmy finished 2nd last week at Long Beach. You were running 7th, but it's a DNF for you today. What put you out, Al?
The transmission. Some in the 4th gear. I was running 4th gear and it just broke.
What about the race this afternoon? Can anybody head Guerrero?
No one can touch Guerrero. You know, he passed me 3 or 4 times lapping me, and you know, I had my car working fairly well, and but he goes anywhere he wants to. The air is really bothersome out there right now, and it doesn't seem to affect Guerrero at all. You know, he runs high, he runs low, he runs everywhere, wherever he wants.
Well, for Al Unser Jr., last week was diamonds, and this day it's stones.
Indeed, rough stones, as Unser Jr. will finish somewhere back in the pack today. You heard his comments about Roberto Guerrero. Sam Posey, was there any inkling, any foreknowledge coming into this season that Roberto Guerrero might pop out in the first oval track race of the season and dominate the way he has for the past 50 miles or so?
No, I don't think so. I'm really astonished to see it, given the strength of so many of the teams. I would have expected Roberto, yes, to be good at the road races, but this is an amazing performance. And somehow this track is always the litmus test for who is hot at a given point. And boy, you know, the first step to winning Indy, Jim, is to win this race. I mean, it puts a tremendous psychological advantage on your side.
A year ago in this race, Michael Andretti led most of the way and then went on to lead through most of the first 100 miles or so at Indianapolis. Kevin Cogan came on and won this race when Andretti went out with 35 laps to go a year ago. Kevin Cogan went on to finish 2nd at Indianapolis. Roberto Guerrero, I've already pointed out, was 2nd at Indy in 84, 3rd in 85, 4th in 86. The law of averages says that if he continues to contend like that, that 4.32 is going to turn into a 1 one of these years. And the question that is obvious at this moment is, could this be the year for the 28-year-old Colombian who now lives in San Juan Capistrano, California, with his wife Katie and their 1.5-year-old son Marco? It may well be. 5 laps to go at Phoenix. Roberto Guerrero unthreatened by Bobby Rahal at this time, headed apparently toward his first victory in IndyCar racing. But we'll point out once again that he was in this position last fall in Miami and ran out of gas on the last lap. You follow him now, Sam Posey, as he makes his way around the 1-mile oval.
All right, there he is, going into the first turn. As 3 laps to go, that's the 9-degree banking of that first turn, which is sharper, steeper banking than the turn that he is coming to at the other end of the track. It's those 2 dissimilar turns at either end of the track that make this place so very difficult to get a car handling right. But Guerrero has used today a higher line, closer up to the wall when he's been free of traffic than anyone else. He seems to have suffered less from the imbalance one end or the other to the track than anyone, and as you can see, he's been able to dominate the race from the moment that he emerged in the lead. We haven't seen superiority like this on an oval in some time. But to show you how surprising this world of kart racing is, of course, only last week Mario Andretti was dominating Long Beach just as much as Guerrero's dominating this race now.
Roberto Guerrero headed toward an apparently easy victory in the Phoenix 200. And there you see the correct graphic which says there are 2 laps to go for Guerrero. When he comes by the start-finish line this time. He'll get the white flag, which indicates only 1 lap to go. The only question then will be, does he have enough fuel? And on a 1-mile track, he so far shows absolutely no signs that he's in any danger of running out of methanol before he gets the checkered flag. Rahal just went by the start-finish line. That gives you an idea of how wide the margin is, which the scoring system now lists at just about 10 seconds. But here he comes for what has been a long-awaited first victory and a totally dominant one today. Checkered flag for Roberto Guerrero. And now let's go to Bobby Unser in Guerrero's pit.
Okay, I got him. Here we have a real happy group. Come on, Mo, get over here. Mo Nunn, the team leader, Vince Granatelli. Vince, come on in here. What do you think about this, Mo?
Fantastic. What a way to win, huh? Right from the back. Can't believe it.
Do you feel you guys have earned it? Do you think Roberto did a good job today?
Absolutely fantastic. And what a way to go into Indy.
Woo! Vince, brand new car owner, first year. Your father was in it for many years. Are you happy about this?
Oh, I'm so happy. Well, I don't even know how to explain it. Boy, I'm happy.
This man deserves it. He used to be on my crew way back in 1963 in Indianapolis. Congratulations, Vince.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Bobby Unser, and keep in mind, as we point out, that Bobby Rahal finished second behind Guerrero. In case you did not join us at the top of the telecast, there's Rahal's car being pulled into position for the post-race ceremony. Harry Luyendyk has just has his car pulled into position. He's going to wind up as the third place finisher. Michael Andretti will be fourth. I'll point out one more time, Roberto Guerrero began this race in the dead last position, 22nd spot on the grid, and won it easily. Let's go down to Jack ARUTE. Jack?
And Jim, only 4 times in IndyCar history has a driver come from shotgun on the field to be victorious. The last time, Tom Sneva in 1980, and now for your first victory in your career, you've done it, Roberto Guerrero. You're number 4 to come from the back to the front. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jack. I don't know what to say. Everything worked perfectly. I mean, it was great. I mean, starting last and managed to come all the way through. I'm just so happy. I don't know what to say.
Last to the front. Did you ever think when you sat in the cockpit this morning that you could get the job done?
Well, to be honest with you, everybody kept saying, oh, you can still win it. But in the back of my mind, you know, it's tough to make yourself believe that you can win it from last. But the car worked beautifully, and everything was just great.
Hey, those first couple of laps, it was like carving a hot knife through butter. Take us through the first couple of laps, how you tried to negotiate that traffic.
Well, it was just a matter of, I mean, my car was working so well that it was just a matter of just, you know, finding a way either the inside or the outside, and, you know, the car just worked beautifully. So it was a lot of fun. I loved it.
And then the tire going awry, you hit it, you went out, Cart brought you in for a stop-and-go penalty. Did you think maybe the monkey was back on your back then?
God, I couldn't believe it then. I obviously felt the tire when I went over it, and I said, oh, no, here we go again.
There was a little bit of a fuel controversy inside your pit. Vince Granatelli said you had plenty to go the distance. You only showed about 25 gallons left in the tank, and it looked like you were going to have to at least come in around lap 170. Were you at all concerned about that?
Well, to be honest with you, the fuel light wasn't working, so I wasn't concerned about it. The guys were giving me good signals in the pits, and I just kept going for it.
A long time coming. Compare it to the way you ran in Formula One. Is this a sweet one?
This is going to be the sweetest, and I'm sure for a long time. I mean, being the first one and coming from last, I mean, you just couldn't ask for more.
Indianapolis is coming up. It's been your favorite racetrack. You know, they say that if you do well at Phoenix, you do well at Indianapolis. How can you do much better than you've done there in the years past?
Well, we're ready for it. You know, I think we have a really good crew. Vince Granatelli's done a great job with the team. Maurice Noah, all the guys, and we're just over the moon.
And look at this. Look who's behind you. I think this says it all. And look who's a little bit asleep, little Marco. What do you think, Katie? Is it special?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I'm like in 7th heaven right now. I still don't believe it. I'm just thrilled for him. He drove a beautiful race.
Now, through the course of the race, describe your emotions, because it was a roller coaster.
I was a wreck. Everyone kept saying, this is his. And I'd say, be quiet. Don't hex him. Please don't say anything. I just had my fingers crossed the whole way. I felt like I was out there with him.
I want to know, what are you two guys going to tell Marco when he's a little bit older about your first victory?
Well, I mean, he's going to get to know about this one for sure. This was a special one. No matter what, it was a special one.
Gentlemen, I think that just about says it all for Victory Lane. Let's check in now with my cohort, Bobby Unser.
I'm here with Bobby Rahal, one proud second place finisher. Bobby, that was honestly a good race. Everybody thinks you did a good job. How do you feel about it?
I'm real happy. You know, there's more points than we've ever scored this time of year, so I'm real happy. It's a tough racetrack, as you well know, and you know, we were real good in the last set of tires. Just gave me a little bit too much push, and that hurt me when I got in traffic, but the Bud car came through for us and the crew, and you know, as I say, it's a tough racetrack, and anytime you can finish well here, you got to be happy.
Is your neck tired?
My neck's tired, my body's tired, but I feel great.
That was a good race, but that last pit stop kind of got to you just a little bit. You pitted just a little bit early, didn't you?
Well, I think the problem was I put it in gear and it creeped on me, and you know, it's starting to go a little early, and I couldn't hold it with the clutch, so I had to put the brake on. That stalled it, and that kind of hurt us. But we got to be happy.
If you had it to do over again, could you catch Roberto? Could you change the car and adjust it to outrun him?
I tried adjusting the bars and stuff, and it really, the balance of the car was pretty good all the way through, but anytime I adjusted it, it got worse, so I just left it alone.
Now there's an honest race driver. He just got beat today, but tomorrow may be his day. Back to you, Jack. Jim.
All right, Bobby, good job. Thank you very much. And of course, after that great shot of Katie and Marco in Guerrero's pit, you now have to wonder if Roberto will have a pacifier sponsor lined up for the team when they show up in Indianapolis. Let's hope so. Meanwhile, here is a look at final results from this race. The first victory of Roberto Guerrero's IndyCar racing career. Bobby Rahal second. Arie Luyendyk, like Guerrero, a former road racer, finished third. Michael Andretti was fourth. Mario Andretti finished fifth in what was a workmanlike performance after his sensational effort dominating a week ago. Gisele Garza was sixth. Then Dennis Firestone, Jeff Brabham, Johnny Rutherford, Dick Simon at 53 years old, Danny Sullivan, whose car struggled through much of the action, and Fabrizio Barbazza, who is a rookie and was getting his first IndyCar-style oval track start today. Jeff McPherson, another rookie, followed by Al Unser Jr., Tony Bettenhausen, Gary Bettenhausen, the family that races together, stays together, Tom Sneva, and Randy Lewis. And then, after those, Rick Mears, Kevin Kogan, and Ludwig Heimrath Jr. brought up the rear of the field. So Heimrath finished 22nd. Guerrero started the day 22nd and finished all the way at the other end of the field, number one, here at Phoenix. We'll be back for final word right after this. Back live in Phoenix, and Sam Posey, first one important point. The last sequence of pit stops took place with 44 miles to go in the race. Bobby Rahal made the tactical error of pitting ahead of the pace car and therefore lost a lap. If he hadn't done so, he'd have emerged from that sequence of pit stops with a lead over Roberto Guerrero. Would he have been able to hold it?
Yes, he would have won the race.
So you believe that Rahal, in effect, lost the race with the tactical error of pitting ahead of the pace car?
I believe so.
Okay, that did not happen. Guerrero went on to win the race, and it's a great story because of the progress he made through the field. Sam?
Well, he started literally off the chart in 22nd place, did Roberto Guerrero. And as he moved up, he moved up very fast. At the end of 20 laps, he was already 8th. At the end of 40 laps, he was 7th. At 60 laps, he had already emerged in second place, just at 60 laps, a third of the way into the race. Then on lap 90, he briefly took the lead, dropped back to second, and by lap 120, he was back in the lead. Now, he continued, as we know, to lead all the way to the end of the race, even here on lap 165, where he had that touch and go stop because of the penalty. Yet he stayed in the lead, of course, and went on to win his first race. Extraordinary achievement, and as Jack ARUTE points out, to make history really as being one of only 4 men ever to do this, coming from the back to win.
The third place finisher in the race, once again, was Arie Luyendyk. And you heard Jack ARUTE say earlier, how you do at Phoenix is regarded by many as a benchmark for how you do at Indianapolis. Now, Guerrero won the race here. Do his second, third, and fourth place finishes in past years at Indianapolis indicate to you that he might be ready to win the Indy 500, Sam?
They establish him as one of, if not the favorite right now.
All right, let's go down to Jack ARUTE, who's with Arie Luyendyk. Jack?
And one man that is getting all of the accolades now for your finest IndyCar career drive, Arie Luyendyk. Arie, a good day today.
It was fantastic. The car was really working great. The crew's been working real hard at it. We We had some problems in qualifying, and we made a few changes to the car for the race, and it just worked perfectly. I'm really happy with the job the Helmergarden crew is doing, and I think we made the right decision to go with this team this year.
Now, what does it do to the psyche of a young driver when he has a fine finish like this, getting ready for the big one at Indianapolis?
Well, it definitely helps a lot. You know, we needed a good finish. We had a 5th in 85, and last year was a long struggle, and today it sort of seemed to come together. The only problem I had was 45 inches of boost instead of 48, but other than that, everything was fantastic. I'd just like to thank my sponsors for sticking with me, Profimi Feel and Living Well, and we're going to Indy with a real good feeling about everything.
Well, that's the story from Victory Lane. Let's go up to Jim Lampley. Jim?
All right, it was indeed a fast and explosive race as advertised. A final comment now from Bobby Unser. Bobby?
Jim, I think this is probably one of the finest races I've ever seen at Phoenix. This is going to go down in history of being a good checker 200. The people are going to love it. I think it just sets a precedent for what is going to be like the rest of the year. Roberto Guerrero, it's going to be accounted for, I promise.
All right, Bobby, and when we next report from this racing circuit, it will be from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where on May 9, we will bring you the first day of qualifying the race for the pole position as we get ready for our live telecast for the second consecutive year live of the greatest event in American automobile racing, the Indianapolis 500, on Sunday, May 24 from the old Brickyard in Indianapolis. Once again, the winner of the Phoenix 200 is Roberto Guerrero. Stay tuned for ABC's World News Sunday and your local news. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, recognized around the world as the leader in sports television. And now, for Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, Jack ARUTE, I'm Jim Lampley saying so long. See you at Indy on May 9.